Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a story, so don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an upcoming chapter. Crown Without Magic Chapter 1. In a breathtaking garden that blended medieval elegance with an almost futuristic beauty stood a magnificent mansion. In one of its rooms, the walls glowed soft pink and toys and dolls covered every surface. The door creaked open, and a little girl in pink pajamas walked in, smiling brightly as she clutched her favorite stuffed bunny. A stunning woman followed close behind. "Mommy," the girl said sweetly, "tell me a story before bed." The mother smiled. "Another one tonight? I want a good one. The best one you've ever told me." The mother thought for a moment, then her eyes brightened. "You know what? I have a very good one for you." They climbed into the cozy bed together. The little girl snuggled close as her mother began to speak. "This story is about someone you already know, but I won't tell you who it really is. You have to figure it out by the end." The girl's eyes went wide. "Okay." And so, the mother started. There was a family that desperately wanted 2 baby boys. The husband and his pregnant wife were overjoyed when the doctor confirmed they were expecting twins, both boys. In their family, boys were considered gold while girls were seen as a burden. The whole household celebrated. But when the babies were finally born, shock rippled through the delivery room. One was a boy, and the other was a girl. The parents were furious. Everything they had prepared, every piece of clothing, every toy, had been chosen for boys, and they kept it all. They had never once considered the possibility of a daughter. Though they accepted the girl into their home, she was never truly wanted. They ignored her. Everything intended for their son, she was forced to do alongside him: taekwondo, boxing, whatever her twin brother did, she had to follow. Her brother, thoroughly spoiled, soon began treating her as his personal servant. He made her carry his school bags and attend to his every demand, and the family allowed it without a word. The girl craved love and received none. Her name was Vanessa. Her twin brother's name was Vincent. Vanessa was smarter, stronger, and better than Vincent at nearly everything she attempted. This made him despise her with a burning, relentless passion. He bullied her at school, turned his friends against her, and made her life at home a misery. Even in taekwondo, she outshone him, which only deepened his rage. There were other classes nearby, ballet and ice skating, taught to the girls in the neighborhood. Vanessa loved watching through the window, mesmerized by every graceful movement. She secretly began teaching herself the steps, finding a quiet joy in the practice she could share with no one. But when Vincent caught her, he went straight to their father and twisted the story beyond recognition. Their father locked her in a dark room for hours as punishment. She never danced again. Years passed. At 14, Vanessa came home early from school to find herself faced not only with her own homework but with Vincent's and his friends' assignments as well. That same afternoon, she overheard her grandmother and father talking in low, certain voices. When she turned 18, they planned to sell her into a marriage, for money. In that moment, Vanessa knew she had to escape. She began taking secret part-time jobs, saving every coin she earned, and threw herself into her studies with a fierce and private determination. In time, she secured a scholarship at a university far away. 4 years later, just before her 18th birthday, Vincent discovered her jobs. He threatened to expose her. Vanessa understood immediately that her time had run out. She packed her savings, her scholarship letter, and a few changes of clothes, and left that same night. She never looked back. She studied as though her life depended on it, because it did. She graduated at the top of her class. 10 years after running away, Vanessa had built an empire. She was the chief executive of the most successful investment firm in the country. One evening, as she left the office, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She answered carefully. "Vanessa. It's been so long. I'm back in the country, do you want to meet?" Joy flooded through her instantly. "Stella. Oh my God, yes. I would love that."
They met at their old favorite restaurant. They hugged, laughed until their sides ached, and cried without quite being able to say why. "I'm a published novelist now," Stella announced with a proud, almost shy smile. Vanessa's eyes widened. Really? I read constantly, but I've never come across your name. Do you write under a pen name? Yes. Stella smiled. Mr. Bentley. Vanessa gasped. I love those books. But, why do they always end in tragedy? Stella shrugged lightly. That's what readers want. No, they don't, Vanessa said firmly. I am going to live my life without a single tragedy. Stella laughed. You know what? I just finished a new manuscript, it isn't published yet. Would you like to read it? Vanessa took the thick envelope. The title on the cover read, Magic Kingdom. Magic? She raised an eyebrow. It's very popular at the moment, Stella said with a wave of her hand. Use your imagination. Not everything we write has to be real. They laughed and parted ways. As Vanessa walked to her car, a voice stopped her cold. Vanessa. She turned. It was Vincent, gaunt, disheveled, looking as though he had been sleeping on the streets for months. So, the family's dog is rich now, he sneered. The family's dog? Vanessa looked him slowly up and down. You look more like the dog to me. He lunged at her. Vanessa, who had continued training in taekwondo and boxing throughout the years, dropped him to the ground without any particular effort. Give me the company, he screamed from the pavement. Everything you have is mine. I'm the heir. Vanessa laughed, quiet and unimpressed. Give you my company? Everything I own, I built with my own 2 hands. You were rotten on the inside your whole life, and now, at last, it shows on the outside too. She got into her car and drove away, leaving him shouting in the street. The following morning, her assistant called. Ma'am, there are people here claiming to be your family. They don't look well. 2 elderly people and a young man. Vanessa's blood ran cold. Before she could respond, her father snatched the phone. You ungrateful little, get down here and greet your parents and your brother. How dare you ignore us? You're rich now, so it is your duty to take care of us. This company belongs to. She ended the call. She dialed her assistant back at once. You never cared about me, she said, her voice perfectly steady. You saw me as a burden the moment I was born a girl. Now that I'm successful, you think you own me. Get out of my building, or I'm calling the police. She hung up and called the police. Officers escorted the 3 of them out while her father and Vincent screamed from the lobby. Too stressed to concentrate, Vanessa turned to her assistant. I'm taking a week off. Hold everything down while I'm gone. She flew to her vacation home by the sea. Standing at the rain-streaked window that evening, she whispered to herself, I never actually thought I'd see them again. While unpacking, her hand landed on Stella's manuscript. With a quiet sigh, she made herself a cup of tea, settled onto the sofa, and opened Magic Kingdom. The story followed Crown Prince Elias Celastoria, who fell in love with a young commoner named Lillian after she awakened holy powers and became known as the Saintess of Light. Lillian rose to nobility swiftly, but the prince was already betrothed to Mackenzie Strom, the duke's daughter. The prince's cousin, Archduke Langston Valtor, was his most formidable rival. Langston's wife was Emily Ashford, the tragic duchess, a woman despised by the entire kingdom. In this magical land, nobles were born with powerful elemental abilities: fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, and ice. When Emily was born, she radiated an extraordinarily high concentration of mana. Everyone believed she would be a prodigy. But on her 8th birthday, she awakened no element at all. She had mana syndrome, an affliction common among commoners but considered deeply shameful in a noble family. It caused a person's mana to leak continuously from their body, making it impossible to channel or control any element. Emily was the first noble in recorded history to bear it. Rumors spread that she was illegitimate, born of a secret affair with a commoner. Her own mother turned against her for the suspicion it cast over the family. All 5 of her siblings followed suit. To weaken Archduke Langston's political power, the Crown Prince arranged for him to marry the disgraced Emily. Her family, drowning in debt, sold her off without a second thought. They sent her away in a shabby carriage with no escort and told her to go and live with her new husband. Before she left, her loyal maid, and only true friend, Kelly came running to accompany her. Emily was deeply grateful, and she prayed quietly that her husband might at least be kind, since he had agreed to the match. She did not yet know she had been sold. Emily had hoped for a quiet, peaceful life. Instead, Langston despised her from the very first day. The household maids bullied her openly. After 2 years of marriage, Langston began demanding a divorce. He offered her a mansion outside the capital and a mine, enough to live comfortably for the rest of her days. But every time he presented the papers, Emily fainted, deliberately delaying the process. After the 5th time, his patience finally broke. He forced her to sign and threw her into the streets with nothing. Emily died in the slums from an illness that later spread into a devastating pandemic. Saintess Lillian arrived and cured all those afflicted with her holy powers, earning the title Light, and was elevated to full nobility. Crown Prince Elias fell hopelessly in love with her on the spot. Mackenzie, consumed by jealousy, was ultimately executed for attempting to poison Lillian. After the prince married Lillian, he had Archduke Langston charged with treason and executed as well. The prince and Lillian lived happily ever after. Vanessa slammed the book shut. Why would she stay, she demanded aloud to the empty room. He offered her a mansion and a mine. Her life was miserable, why didn't she just leave? She hated the ending. The villains died, the saintess triumphed, and everyone lived happily ever after on the graves of those who had been discarded along the way. A week later, Vanessa returned to work. Her family never bothered her again. In time, she found love, a kind, warm man named Marcus Hale. After a year of courtship, he proposed. Vanessa was overjoyed. She dreamed of building the loving family she had been denied her entire life. But on Marcus's birthday, she decided to surprise him with a cake at his office. Before she could open the door, she heard voices inside. "She's going to die in a month or 2, Marcus was saying. "I've been poisoning her. She actually thinks I love her. How can a CEO be this gullible?" A second voice answered, one Vanessa recognized instantly. "Hurry up. I've been waiting a whole year." "Vincent." "Calm down," Marcus replied. "We'll drain her of everything first. You take half, I take half." "I just want her dead," Vincent snarled. "Tens of millions will be mine, as it should have always been." Vanessa covered her mouth and walked quietly away. She went to her regular doctor, who declared her in perfect health. But something told her not to trust it. She went to a second hospital. The new doctor's face went pale after reviewing her scans. "Miss, your body is shutting down. You have approximately a month and a half left." Vanessa understood at once. Marcus had been bribing her regular doctor. She went home and rewrote her will. Every last penny would go to charity. She gathered ironclad evidence of what had been done to her and why, and made certain it would reach the right people at the right time. When the month had nearly passed and her deterioration was visible, Marcus came to her bedside. "You'll never get a single thing," she whispered, smiling up at him. "Wait until the whole world knows what you've done." Furious, he wrapped his hands around her throat. Vanessa died smiling. Her soul drifted through a vast, silent darkness. "I never got the loving family I always wanted." Suddenly, something seized her soul and pulled it forward with tremendous, irresistible force. She woke up gasping. "Where the hell am I?" The door burst open. A maid rushed in, tears streaming down her face. "My lady. Lady Emily, you're awake." Vanessa sat up slowly. "What did you just call me?" The maid stared at her in confusion. "My lady, are you still unwell?" Vanessa threw back the covers and crossed to the mirror in 3 quick strides. Her dark hair and dark eyes were gone, replaced by long, silver hair and striking green eyes. She wore an old-fashioned sleeping robe that fell to her ankles. The maid appeared at her elbow. "My lady, it's me, Kelly. Your personal maid. Do you remember me?" Vanessa held the maid's gaze and asked slowly, "What is my name?" "My full name." Kelly looked confused, but answered carefully. "Your name is Emily Valtor, wife of Archduke Langston Valtor." Vanessa stared at her reflection for a long, silent moment. Then she began to laugh, a helpless, disbelieving laugh that echoed off the stone walls. Kelly took a step back, visibly alarmed. "I'll fetch some water to wash your face, my lady," Kelly said quietly, and slipped out of the room. Vanessa remained before the mirror, studying the silver-haired woman looking back at her. "Emily Ashford," she said softly. "The woman hated by an entire kingdom. Despised by her own husband." She paused. "I suppose people call this reincarnation. Transmigration. Whatever the word is, I've become the most pitiful woman in that book." A quiet, humorless laugh escaped her. "Though I'm hardly in a position to judge, considering how I lived and died." She walked to the window and looked out at an unfamiliar landscape. Rolling hills, stone walls, carriages moving in the distance. "Well, I really have reincarnated." As she stood there, her head began to spin. Memories that were not her own came flooding in like a broken dam, a childhood of shame, a wedding stripped of all warmth, years of silent endurance. Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I suppose what I read about you is only a fraction of what you actually went through," she murmured to the reflection in the glass. She straightened. Then she smiled. "Don't worry. I'm going to make sure that every single person who ever saw you as nothing, as a disgrace, bows down to you." A few minutes later, Kelly returned with a basin of water. "Kelly," Emily said, turning from the window, "why was I unconscious? What happened?" Kelly looked uneasy. "You fainted again, my lady, when the Archduke presented the divorce papers. You always came round once we brought you to your room, so I was frightened when you slept for a full day and wouldn't wake. How many times have I fainted now?" "This is the 4th time, my lady." Emily turned this over carefully in her mind. "The 4th time. One more, and Langston throws her into the streets with nothing." She had absolutely no intention of letting that happen. "Is the Archduke in his office?" Kelly nodded. "Good. Help me get dressed, I need to see him immediately." Kelly blinked, visibly startled. In 2 years of marriage, the madam had never once sought out the Archduke of her own volition. Nevertheless, she retrieved a dress and began to help Emily into it. "Wait," Emily said, holding the dress up and examining it with a frown. "Is there truly nothing prettier than this?" Kelly glanced between the dress and Emily uncertainly. "My lady, this is the finest gown you own. It is considered one of the most fashionable dresses in high society at the moment." Emily stared at it for a beat, then muttered under her breath, "I'm going to have to make some significant changes around here." Once dressed, she walked out of the room and made straight for the Archduke's office. As she passed a cluster of maids in the corridor, they exchanged sneering, knowing glances. Emily paid them no attention whatsoever. She had one goal, and she intended to see it done before her time ran out. A mansion and a mine were waiting for her. When she reached the Archduke's office, she did not knock. She simply pushed the heavy doors open and walked inside. Kelly, following a step behind, went very still in the doorway. Langston looked up from his desk. When he saw Emily, his expression darkened immediately with undisguised distaste. "Have your fainting spells robbed you of common sense as well? Do you not know how to knock?" Emily crossed the room without a word and sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Are you ignoring me right now?" "I'm here to sign the divorce papers," she said, cutting him off cleanly. "Where are they?" Langston's eyes narrowed, irritated at being interrupted, and visibly surprised that she had raised it herself. He opened the drawer and slid a document across the desk. "As agreed, you receive a mansion and a mine. You're the one who told me to prepare these. Don't faint." Emily picked up the pen and signed without a moment's hesitation. "I believe that concludes things," she said, rising from the chair. "My marriage to you, Your Grace, ends here. I'll begin packing and will be gone by early morning." She turned and walked out without another word. Langston sat very still, watching the door long after it closed. "Do you think she'll actually keep her word, Alfred?" he asked his butler, who had stood quietly to one side throughout the exchange. Alfred considered. "In the 2 years you have been married to Miss Emily, sir, this is the first time I have ever seen her conduct herself as she just did. That said, would not assume she leaves so easily. Langston picked up the signed papers and looked at them. She's already signed. Even if she makes a scene in the morning, she's still going. The following morning, Langston was roused earlier than usual by noise rising from the courtyard below. He frowned and rang for Alfred. "You called for me, sir?" Alfred bowed at the door. "What is that commotion at this hour?" Alfred looked faintly unsettled. "The lady is loading her belongings into the carriages, sir. She appears to be leaving." Langston's gaze moved to the window. He rose from bed and looked down. Emily was there, directing servants with calm, unhurried authority, gesturing at trunks and cases, moving about with obvious purpose. And she was smiling. Not the strained, desperate smile he had seen on her face for 2 years, but something entirely different. Something genuine and light. "She's actually leaving," he said, almost to himself. He dressed quickly and went downstairs. Emily saw him come through the doors and offered a graceful curtsy. "Good morning, Your Grace." Langston studied her carefully. "What is all this?" "I was trying to be gone before you woke up," she said pleasantly. "I'm sorry for the noise. I truly didn't mean to disturb you." He looked at her, this woman who had once refused to meet his eyes, who had grasped and fainted and delayed at every possible turn. She looked different this morning. Lighter. "Were you planning to leave without informing me?" Emily raised an eyebrow. "We are divorced, Your Grace. I'm no longer obliged to report my schedule to you. However, you are a duke, and out of respect for your title, I passed the details to your butler." Langston glanced at Alfred, who gave a small, confirming nod. Kelly appeared at Emily's side. "My lady, everything is ready for your departure." Emily looked at Langston one last time. "Goodbye, Your Grace. I sincerely hope our paths never cross again." She turned and walked to the carriage. Kelly moved to see her off from the steps, but Emily paused with her hand extended. "My lady?" Kelly asked. "Did you think I would leave you behind in this place?" Emily smiled warmly. "You're not just my maid, Kelly. You're my closest friend. I would very much like to start this new life with you, if you're willing." Kelly's eyes filled with tears. "Well?" Emily said gently. "Are you coming or not?" Kelly grabbed her hand, laughing and crying all at once. "Goodbye, this dreary place." Emily called out brightly as the carriage began to roll forward through the gates. "This Gen Z girl is going to live her life to the absolute fullest." Langston stared after the departing carriage. "Did she just call my estate dreary?" he said. "And what in God's name is a Gen Z?" Alfred was quiet for a moment. "I'm not certain, sir." Emily stuck her head out of the carriage window the moment they cleared the gates, taking in the unfamiliar landscape with wide, hungry eyes. "My lady, please behave like a noble and stay inside the carriage," Kelly said, gently tugging at her arm. "Starting today, don't call me my lady, just call me Emily," Emily said, pulling herself back in but still bouncing with energy. "I'm divorced now, and my family would never take me back, so in practice I'm practically a commoner." Kelly looked at her, alarmed. "That isn't how it works, my lady. Being a noble is not about your family's household, it is about blood. Even if you were living in the slums, you would still be a noble." "Really?" Emily said, genuinely surprised. "Yes, my lady. So I will continue to call you my law." "Please don't," Emily said, and reached out to take both of Kelly's hands in hers. "You are more family to me than my actual family has ever been. I think of you as my sister. I would love it if you called me by my name." Kelly looked at her for a long moment, tears welling quietly. "Yes, my law," she caught herself. "Yes. Miss Emily, may respect for can never, so I will call you Miss." They reached the mansion after a couple of hours of travel. It was not grand, but it was well maintained, solid stone walls, a modest garden, rooms that smelled of old wood and winter light. Emily and Kelly stepped inside together to find it entirely empty. Not a single servant remained. "He really did take all the staff," Emily said flatly. "Servants are loyal to their master's household," Kelly explained. Since you and the Archduke are now divorced, they return to the main estate. Then we'll hire our own, Emily said. Kelly looked as though she wanted to say something. Emily caught the hesitation immediately. What is it? Emily, even though the Archduke gave you the mine, it has not been doing well for some time. I've heard that they are close to closing it entirely. Kelly paused. And even though this mansion is modest compared to the main estate, it will still require 10 to 15 servants to run properly. I already knew the mine looked like a failure, Emily thought to herself. But there is actually a large diamond vein hidden deep within it, one that was only discovered after Langston was executed for treason, when all his assets were seized by the Crown Prince and given to Lillian as a wedding gift. She smiled to herself. And now it's mine. Don't worry about it, Kelly, she said brightly. Start looking for servants to hire tomorrow. For now, let's see our new home. She grabbed Kelly's hand and they ran together to find the garden. Beautiful! Emily exclaimed, turning slowly to take it all in. Then something in the corner caught her eye. Is that a bed of strawberry plants? She moved toward it, a generous bed bursting with ripe, red strawberries, each one gleaming in the afternoon light. You like them too, Emily? Kelly said, coming up beside her. A great many nobles plant them for the season, they're considered quite ornamental. Though I can't believe the servants left without tending to them. They'll drop off the stems and dirty the whole garden in no time. Emily stared at her. You don't eat them? Eat them? What do you make your desserts with, then? What kind of desserts do you even eat here? Emily began carefully gathering the ripest strawberries into the hem of her dress. There should be some in the kitchen, Kelly offered. Let's go and see. They found the kitchen easily enough. Kelly produced a tray of plain butter biscuits and a small loaf of bread, apparently left behind by the departing servants. Emily looked at the tray in disbelief. That's it? Ladies enjoy these at tea parties all the time, Kelly said, looking slightly defensive. I'm quite glad they left some behind. Where are the cakes? The macarons, the fruit tarts, all the beautiful things I've seen in, Emily stopped herself. Never mind. Let me show you what a dessert is supposed to taste like. She set to work in the kitchen with the strawberries she had gathered, rolling up her sleeves with the confidence of someone who had done this 100 times. An hour later, she placed a golden-crusted strawberry pie on the table between them. Kelly looked at it with polite, uncertain eyes. Then, cautiously, she took a bite. Her eyes went wide. This is delicious. Right? Emily grinned. If people tasted this, they would be completely addicted. The idea arrived fully formed, sudden and bright. Emily straightened slowly. Then this is how we make our first money, she said. Kelly blinked. You're going to sell this pie of yours? Not just this pie, Emily said, with the particular smile of someone who has already decided. There is a great deal more where that came from. Night fell soft and quiet over the mansion. Emily stood on her balcony, looking up at a sky thick with unfamiliar stars, and let herself simply breathe. I'm going to change a great many things in this world, she thought. I'm going to make sure I live both our lives better than either of us could have dreamed. She looked at the stars a little longer. Then she went back inside, went to bed, and prepared herself for work tomorrow. End of chapter 1. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next chapter.